Welcome back to Business Week here on Arise News. I'm joined now by Muktar Mohammed, CEO of Finance with Muktar, and a Business Week regular to review some of our top stories in more detail. Great to have you back on the show again, Muktar.
Thank you, Rolake.
So I want us to start with the Japan story. We don't often talk about Japan, but there's a lot going on in that economy. The Prime Minister is stepping down over political issues and allegations of spending corruption in the country. Japan, this is very surprising. What exactly is going on in that country?
They've been one party that have been ruling. It's all about politics of money and politics coming together. That's what's happening in Japan. And politically, it seems to maintain a lot of stability in the home front, especially with the ruling party. They've been there since 1955, so they've done a lot of things that, people are so stuck to them. But again, in terms of corruption that came out, he didn't handle that very well. Even if internationally, he's been doing well with international diplomacy, also with their defense alliance with the United States, seems to be the only superpower there that can challenge China. But again, in terms of the economy, high cost of living. For the first time, Japan is suffering from inflationary pressure, and for the first time, they are thinking of cutting rates. So a lot of, hiking rates. A lot of things have gone against their economy because of the competition, especially their major export out of Japan is the automobile sector, and it's facing a lot of competition in other, especially with the Chinese coming up with their own automobile sector like that. So it's really affecting them, and they felt that he's not acting well based on that. And then he felt that even if there was no pressure, that they need a new type of leadership. And it was positively received by the business committee when he was saying he was going to step down. And you could see the Japan stock exchange responded positively to that after a long time downturn in that market. So it's a good one for the Japanese economy. Finally, they're trying to see how they can go in, find a new leadership that can drive them forward in this era. Yeah,
in fact, the Central Bank of Japan's governor has been in the spotlight a lot recently, but Japan moved from an era of really low to negative interest rates to an era of now needing to hike interest rates. Do you think consumers and businesses feeling the pinch of high interest rates would have contributed to his ousting?
Exactly, that's it. They did, because again, when you look at the automobile sector, which is the largest driver of this, they were suffering from a lot of, in terms of profitability from all these companies have not been there for a while. Then their own minimum wage has been there for a very long time. So they have to do something about it by hiking the rate, so that, increasing their minimum wage, so that they can get the consumer sector also moving forward. So it was really a big decision they made, especially from the Central Bank of Japan, to cut their rate.
Yeah, very interesting. And of course, Japan's interest rates are in very low double digits. So we're not even talking about compared to the rest of the world.
No, but that shows you the challenge the world. The world is really battling challenge of inflation, high cost of living.
Indeed.
That's what the world is battling at the moment.
Indeed. Interesting developments there in Japan. We want to talk about Seplat, whose share price cost 4,000 naira per share for the first time. Obviously doing well. Tell us about the key drivers of this appreciation in the Seplat PLC share price.
I think the key driver is just perception.
When you say perception, what do you mean?
Of what investors are expectant of Seplat. Last time the result came out was not very fantastic, and they gave a lot of reasons for that. That has to do with the low oil output because of Niger Delta issue of oil theft. So they've not been able, they have challenges technically. But again, when the news came out from OPEC that Nigeria's oil production have moved up by 1.3 million barrels per day, and that excited the market. And Seplat is a whole listed company, both the exploitation company, the marketing arm, and everything. Is one of the oil company with Owando that have all their entity listed in the exchange. And I think so a lot of investors got excited about that news, that this will add to the bottom line of Seplat going forward. And so most investors are looking at that space. And remember that they also benefited from a lot of oil policy of this current administration in terms of diversifying, bringing more investors into the oil space. So a lot of investors are excited going forward. That's why they are looking at Seplat at 4,000.
And of course, Seplat is actually dual listed because they're listed in the London market. But the other interesting thing about Seplat is they actually have quite a big gas strategy with the ANO gas project. So do you think that is also helping them in terms of ensuring that the company's financial
I mean, they're diversifying.
Yeah.
And you know that we have the challenge with gas, and just like you said in your report, the president is trying to exploit those with Equatorial Guinea. And once you begin to come up with those gas policy, definitely the big players will be the one to benefit, and Seplat will be one of those first to benefit. In terms they've seen that space in that market, they've taken full grip of that space. Going forward, you know, we're talking about renewable energy, we're talking about the CNG buses that will come in. This will all be driven by a company like Seplat. So looking at the retail sector of Seplat, will begin to have a boom in their bottom line, especially with the advent of the CNG buses all over the country.
Absolutely.
So investors are looking at that strategy and saying, look, this is a company to, and so the demand, and again, the float of Seplat also is low volume floating shares. So a lot of people want it, but it's not available that much in the market. So that helps it to the demand was high, the supply was low. So hopefully we expect that maybe in the near future, Seplat we might just decide to do maybe a public offer or give bonus to expand on the availability of their, to boost their liquidity, especially their share liquidity in the market. Hopefully that will happen.
Okay. We'll be watching that story closely. Now over to the US. Of course, it's election season. So any economic data that comes out of the US is always interesting to see. And this data by the Commerce Department shows consumer spending and retail sales looking pretty buoyant.
Buoyant.
Yeah.
Surprising.
Okay.
Because again, surprising in one hand, not good news to the Republican, because that was something they would have catched upon to bring down the Democrat. But unfortunately, that result came up. And then what was the key drivers? They saw consumer in terms of job creation was a little bit higher, though lower than expected. What was better. So a lot of people are now having jobs compared to their unemployment rate is going down. So they are coming up with a lot of consumer spending strategy. So once people have jobs, they can decide to buy a lot. And you could see that in the food space, and also the consumer space that has to do with deliverable, especially online deliverable, improved during those periods. Because what it means, again, the minimum wage also surgically increase over time because of the high cost of living in terms of dealing with inflation and other. So that space is also helping some of these consumer good companies like Walmart. So the result that came in was fantastic. More than what investors were expecting. And you see that space also in Amazon, because they're driving the tech space in terms of delivery of some of these items through the use of technology.
Yeah, so interesting, when you look at the key indicators for the US economy, we see some inflation pressures coming down. And that, we're all expecting the Fed to cut rates come September. But heading in towards the election season, do you have any thoughts on who of the two candidates these sorts of figures might help?
I think if you look
the
at
incumbent?
I think the incumbent, you look at what she came out with. If you look at her economic blueprint that she came out with, I think it was yesterday, came out from her campaign, you realize that it's all about consumer spending. It's talking about making loan available for consumers to be able to spend. It's talking about first-time house owners to have a discount in terms of payment. It's talking about houses that will have, maybe you have a new kids into that, but it's talking about reducing your tax bracket. So all these are geared towards consumer spending. So a lot of money will be driven back into the American economy in terms of consumer spending. American economy is largely driven, even people talk about whatever they have, but the main tick that ticks in American economy is their consumer spending.
Right.
And once that space is low, then you see the companies begin to suffer. So I think it will favor the incumbent, because again, if you look, like I said, if you look at the economic policy, the data is looking at job creation also is there. But when you look at the Republican, what they hamper more on is more or less on immigration, how to get illegal immigrants out. And the populists are not interested in that now. They want to, but in terms of confidence level economically, the Americans, average America, are more confident that Donald Trump can handle more of the economic side than Harris. But again, when you look at the policy that Harris are bringing out, the policy that Donald Trump is bringing out, it seems to the Harris all seems to have, and then Donald Trump also is trying to say that with his interview with Elon Musk also caused a lot of controversy, because at that point he was talking about firing workers that go on strike And the average Americans are they are the working class American, and they don't see that statement as something. They see it like being bullied. And so that again is working against her, against him. And then when you look at Harris talking about job creation, talking about building one of the American economies thrive on mortgage. Yeah. And he's saying, look, we'll build 4,000 more houses, and these houses they will enjoy a lot of incentive, about $25,000 off for first-time mortgage
buyers. I mean, that would be music to the ears of consumers. We'll be following the intrigue of the American elections, and especially as it ties into the economy closely. But back to our own economy, Nigeria. What has been in the news this week has been the $500 million local bond sale, the dollar-denominated bond sale to woo investors. What are your thoughts on how the uptake and subscriptions for that bond is likely to be, and how do you think it will support the government's current macroeconomic plans? I
think I'm happy for the first time we are looking at a long-term solution to a problem. The main problem we have is liquidity, especially the FX space. And the only way you can address that is come up with a product. I was waiting for them. We're still waiting for the diaspora fund. That will come up. The minister is talking about it coming up before the end of the year. That's another product. Now you're looking at local dollar denominated. But I smell right in it, and when the fact that the CBN has come up with a policy of also dormant account. Most of these dormant accounts also are domiciled in dollars. So they could also be, that's why they are promising a lot of investors that space. As also, they must have seen that space also, they will be able to get in some funds from that place. But when you look at who are really those investors they are expecting, are the high net investors, those that have dollars in the economy that want to make sure those dollars are growing. And my concern has always been in the area of what are the rate, what are we giving them compared to other developed economy in the world, where they give like 3%, 2%, 4% was, and then you see Nigeria giving 8 to 9%. But in this time, I think they are very conservative in what they are about to do, and it's not a short time. It's a 5 years program. So it gives them a lot of room to attract FX into the economy. They are not only leaving it to the Nigerian investors, they are attracting foreign investors also to come in. I think it's a good strategy. And the first payment will come in 3 months after. So giving them a lot of leeway that at that time liquidity also would have improved in the FX market.
Yeah, indeed. And in terms of liquidity, you talk about the timeline. Are you at all worried about the debt burden of the government?
Well, I'm worried about it, but again, when you look at 5 years, a lot of things can happen in 5 years. Especially if we're able to get some of our key sector working, especially the oil and gas sector, which is the key life wire of the Nigerian economy. And then we'll begin to we'll stop, hopefully within the next 5 years, I'm sure Nigeria will be reducing their importation of refined petroleum product. That could be a game changer. That will bring in more FX into the system. Like I say, give them a breather compared to the short-term fire brigade approach, Dutch auction system today, supply bureau they change tomorrow. But now we are having a long-term solution.
Hopefully we'll see how this pans out. We'll be following the story very quickly. Thank you, Muktar Mohammed, CEO of Finance with Muktar, for your insights.
Thank you for having me.